And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
We're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Here we go. We are loaded. Tennessee basketball with a thrilling win against Alabama. I got to be honest with you. I don't know that I've seen a better game considering the preamble than that Tennessee-Alabama game, and what a 40-foot jumper to win by one of the least thought of suspects that might actually shoot that. All right, so we've got a lot to get to. Also, we'll preview Tennessee's linebacker, Steve Hamer, former Vol, will join us. Also, Paul Finebaum says he thinks the Vols were leaning too heavily on Nico last year. That's kind of the opposite I have. We've texted Paul. We'll see if he can join us later in the week to talk about that. This day in Tennessee sports history. Also, we'll get to the stat of the day. Steve Hamer will talk some Tennessee basketball, the win versus Alabama. How much can that propel you to greater success down the line? Because it is officially March, and we'll talk to Steve about the Lady Vols loss as well. So a lot going on in the program. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
Good. Happy Monday. How are you doing, Dave? Welcome to March.
Yeah, here we go. The odds of March are right around the corner, and just your initial reaction to, and we're going to get into it more with Steve, but just your initial reaction to the way the basketball Vols beat Alabama. That was, wow. I mean, we can discuss whether Tennessee had some shortcomings that might cost them moving forward, and we will. It's today's tough question brought to you by Banks and Jones. But Caleb, I ask you this question just in terms of an exciting basketball game. If you were flipping around and you were a Nevada fan, I mean, that ranks right up there.
In the moment, it's one of the most exciting basketball games I have watched in a long time, just as an average basketball fan. If you're a Tennessee fan, it's one of the most thrilling wins you could ever ask for. I mean, given everything that it means, and we're going to get to that, but not just the thrill of the game itself, but what it means for Tennessee moving forward is just huge. I mean, it's you couldn't ask for a much greater setting. Josh Heupel was in attendance. I'll say this, and this is a debate for another day, Dave, but typically I'm not a fan of seeing coaches get so excited about other sports, because I feel like you're paid to focus on your sport. And I feel like if you're getting too excited about another sport, then you're not doing your job.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's the most fuddy-duddy thing I've ever heard in my life.
I never saw Nick Saban get excited at a men's basketball game at Alabama. I'll just say that. But I will say,
as a matter of fact, he took a shot at Nate Oates during the whole gun thing, if you remember.
He did. But I will say, I'm willing to bet Josh Heupel had some recruits in attendance over the weekend at that game. And if he did, then that's a good selling point for them to want to go to Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you that back when I covered recruiting on a regular basis, there were several times that you came away from the Jerry Green teams and you said that was really exciting. That was awesome. Now, they didn't know that they had internal issues and that they were going to implode in the tournament. That's not something you share with an incoming football recruit, but just that excitement. And it's even better now. I've been to a couple of games as a fan, taking family members, and it's just different than even it was back then. And I know part of that, do you remember when they dropped the black curtains over the top of the arena? Do you remember that?
I do not actually.
So it was like the upper 300 level.
Because it was just to hide the fact that nobody was there?
Well, yeah, it was just too cavernous. I mean, most programs, I'm not knocking Tennessee's program, but most programs aren't going to sell it all the way up to the ceiling. So they've kind of done the same thing, but in a much nicer fashion. What they've done is they've created luxury suites, which kind of does the same thing, right? It fills in room.
Totally.
Yeah, but no, I can remember several times where Tennessee created that sort of environment, and it absolutely resulted in more prospects. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We want to go ahead and do that, and we're going to dive in. And congratulations to the baseball team, too, by the way, who had a fantastic showing. It's time for today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I'll set up today's tough question here momentarily, but you know what our guy T. Scott Jones at Banks & Jones is doing right now?
What is our guy T. Scott Jones doing right now?
Okay. Now, this is a life that we don't live, all right? He is currently in Aruba. And I unhooked my headphones. He is in Aruba getting fitted for his wig because he is officially now a barrister. And do you know what that means?
That's a international lawyer, right?
Yes.
Isn't it a barista or is it a barrister?
Barrister, because I accidentally referred to it a banister as his office, and he looked at me like I was a complete imbecile. So it is barrister, and so like only 9 people in the U.S. have been chosen to do that. So he'll have like the wig and everything, and he can practice law in England. It makes me think of a fish called Wanda. Did you ever see that movie?
No, I never saw that movie.
It's kind of in the Monty Python vein, but it's pretty cool. So we're going to get him if he can. I don't know if it's like the Masters where he can bring home the wig or the Masters.
Is he going to speak to us in like my fancy British accent now than when he talks to us?
So.
He's going to go, He's going to go, good sirs, it's good to see you today. Yes.
Yes, I hope so. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm happy for him, man. That's really awesome. There's only been like 9 barristers in the United States, or maybe it was the state of Tennessee. Anyway, it's a very, very incredible honor. So we want to say congratulations to him. That is pretty darn awesome. Take a second, hit that like and subscribe button because today's tough question is now, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Tennessee's basketball win versus Alabama. Thrilling or concerning? Caleb tends to be the naysayer, so I want to let him go first. Why in the world would this be disconcerting?
So let's first acknowledge that it was, and I'm setting it up as the poll question too. Tennessee basketball's win versus Alabama. Tennessee's basketball win versus Alabama is more thrilling or concerning. So you guys can vote on that.
Why would it be concerning?
I think the way Tennessee basketball beat Alabama is not the way they can afford to win games in March. Now, in terms of the thrillingness, let's put the thrillingness out there. Not just the excitement of the game. Jemai Meshack had, and I want to talk with Steve Hamer about this, that might have been the best closing 30 seconds an individual player has ever had in the history of basketball. All the stuff Jemai Meshack did to close that game out.
Okay, I don't want to compare him to Michael Jordan, but do you remember Michael Jordan, how he actually, before the shot, his final shot as a Bull, and he, left the arm hanging? You realize, and you may be too young for this, he stole the ball from Karl Malone, just like he stole his 13-year-old girlfriend. But he stole the ball from Karl Malone on the other side in a play that he had been working on the entire game, and he dropped back and made the steal. But anyway, Meshack seemed like he had a bag of tricks for the final 30 seconds, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And it's funny you bring that up because I know that play, and Michael Jordan basically kind of exposed Jerry Sloan as a bad head coach at that time because he said, I knew that even though I left my man, every time Malone catches the ball, in that moment, he turns to his right to try to get under the basket. So I knew he was going to go that way. And so, yeah, I know exactly what you're referring to. And it was like that. Now, so on that front, you should be the excitement of that is incredible. Also, the excitement is, look, Tennessee has a clear path to a #1 seed now. They are now more likely than not to get their first ever #1 seed in the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's a great thing for Tennessee to hang its hat on historically.
Who do they have left, by the way?
At Ole Miss and then South Carolina at home. They'll be favored in both games. And I've told you guys, I don't think they factor in the conference tournament at all proceeding. So
okay, so they win both of those games, and they're a number 1 seed. Is it that simple?
I think so. I think they're a lock for a number 1 seed if they win both of those games. I don't think the conference tournament is going to matter. So, I mean, Tennessee's the second most likely team in the SEC to now get a number 1 seed because of that win. I mean, you can't take. I mean, it's really hard to understate how big of a deal that is. Particularly with. I mean, Florida is going to push a little bit, and Florida did just blow out Texas A&M, but I still think Tennessee has a better chance. However, all of that being said, while all of that is thrilling on paper and on its face, and that's why you should be happy, the way Tennessee won that game is very, very concerning. One, let's call it what it is. Nate Oates, that was the worst 30-second coaching clinic I've ever seen in the history of basketball with the way he coached the final 30 seconds to a minute of that game. There was absolutely no reason Alabama should have lost that game. I know people think Danny White would hire Nate Oates if Rick Barnes retired. After watching the way he coached the final minute to 30 seconds of that game, he should never be hired again. That was the worst coaching clinic I've ever seen. On top of that, and this is a really big thing, and I hate to go here, but I'm going to be a little bit of a hater for a minute, Dave. Chaz Lanier, for the second time this year, in a crunch situation, missed a key free throw. Now, he got bailed out because Jemai Meshack forced a loose ball foul, and when he would have gotten the offensive rebound and then hit 2 free throws to tie it up. But Jemai Meshack's not the guy you want to go to for your final score in the game. And the truth be told, Jemai Meshack was the guy they went to. I know Chaz Lanier hit that layup, but Zakai Ziegler is also who they went to late. Chaz Lanier, once again, was hardly anywhere to be found in the final 5 minutes. Game was tied at 68 in the final 5 minutes, and Chaz Lanier came away with 2 points in the final 5 minutes, and he's your primary scorer. This is the thing that concerns me, and it's been the thing that concerns me all year, is Chaz Lanier disappears when the game is on the line, and he is your most important scorer on the floor. So it's exciting that Jemai Meshack did that. Do you really think they want to rely on Jemai Meshack to do the scoring in the final 30 seconds of the NCAA tournament?
Especially not with a 40-footer. But if you're going to leave a guy that wide open, let's make another Jordan comparison. What did he do? He kicked it out to Steve Kerr and John Paxson when they were wide open. So there's something to be said no matter how...
Yeah, but those were sharpshooters before you go.
Okay, right. There's something to be said. I don't care how great you are, Caleb. I don't care if you're Michael Jordan or you're Chaz Lanier. There's something to be said if they're going to D up on you and you've got a wide open dude. Let's face it. They did not think Meshack could do anything with the ball. So they let him dribble it down. So while I agree with you that it would have been nice to have a play to get it more down court so Chaz could shoot a fairly open 3, I can't deny a guy that's just left wide open. Now, I'm not saying settle for the 40-footer, okay? I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying he's dribbling down the court all by himself. He's got to do it. He does not need to look for somebody to pass to, even though he's not a scorer.
That shot by itself wouldn't bother me. It's the fact that Chaz Lanier only scored one bucket in the final 5 minutes of the game, and the fact that Chaz Lanier missed a free throw again with the game on the line. And so that's the second time this year Chaz Lanier has missed a free throw with the game on the line, and he's actually a really good free throw shooter. So that's what bothers me. The Meshack shot, I mean, you bring up Steve Kerr and John Paxson, but notice they were never going to kick the ball out to Dennis Rodman to shoot if he was wide open. And
that's actually a really good point. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So
if he gets the ball in that situation, he's not even dribbling it. He's looking for somebody to pass it to.
Yeah, exactly. And Dennis Rodman will tell you that too. He'll be like, I don't know why people would stay on me in the triangle offense. He said that was the most baffling part of him playing in the Vols system, was like people would still account for me, and I don't know why. Now, Meshack, again, I'm giving him all the credit in the world, but Chaz Lanier is the guy that he missed a free throw with the game on the line, and he really took himself out of the game in a lot of ways before that final 30 seconds. And you can't afford that in the NCAA tournament. And again, Dave, Tennessee benefited from, think about this, and they're bringing it up on the message board. Nate Oates left 2 timeouts on the floor before the end of the game. Nate Oates also did not put any pressure on that final 40-foot shot. That is look, I'm just going to say it. Nate Oates' coaching cost Alabama more than Tennessee did anything to win that game.
Yep. I'm with David on this, and it speaks to what I was talking about. David said, I would rather a decent wide open shooter shoot the ball than a double team sharpshooter. I agree with that. Now, I'm not saying a 40-footer.
Chaz was not double teamed when he missed the free throw.
Well,
it was a free throw.
No, I'm just talking about trying to force it and find him. I guarantee you Alabama's defense was all about stopping Chaz Lanier in the final possession, right?
Yes, but why did he miss a free throw with the game on the line? That's the second time this year he has missed a free throw with the game on the line.
I'm not arguing the free throw. We're talking about two completely different things. You don't miss the free throw. Your Derrick Rose missed a free throw, and that's what cost Memphis a national championship. So, Caleb, let me ask you this. Set up the poll question. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Okay, so setting up the poll question, and I got it. Tennessee's basketball win over Alabama is more thrilling, concerning. Man, I'm losing this one badly. I'm going to change it.
Oh, okay. No, don't change it. Yeah, listen, we fall down to learn how to pick ourselves up.
No.
Brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
All right, give us an update on the poll question. Where are we? We want you to vote, and please click the thumbs up button. What do we got, Caleb?
Tennessee's basketball win versus Alabama is more thrilling or concerning? And the results are, can I give the results?
You can. I think you've kind of painted yourself into a corner because it definitely is thrilling. It's hard to overcome that emotion. I think you could have chosen a different word and made your point and maybe won the argument, but
100% say thrilling.
Oh, it's never been that before.
That's what I'm changing this, and I'm going to say it this way. How about this? Did Tennessee win it, or did Nate Oates lose it? And I'll ask you that, Dave. Did Tennessee beat Alabama, or did Nate Oates lose the game?
Okay, well, let's ask that question. We'll change it up a little bit. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We've got a football spring preview. We're going to take a look at the linebackers. Tennessee has as many linebacker coaches as they do linebackers, so that's always good. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, and I can tell you that I purchased a Jeep last week, and I couldn't be happier. I drove off the lot, very happy with the deal I got, very happy with the buying process. I mean, grand total, maybe I was in there for 2 hours. By the time I went day one, picked it up for an overnight test drive, and day two, got everything wrapped up. They are awesome. Aaron Rodgers, no relationship to Brett Favre, was my salesperson. He was absolutely fantastic, so I would encourage you to call him. But Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, Parkside Drive, and Kingston Pike, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net. You can check out their used inventory. And we're going to talk some Tennessee linebackers next.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for truck month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
All right, so Tennessee's linebackers, are we hot or cold on them? As a whole, I'll go ahead and tell you I'm hot. We usually save that for the end, but we'll do that as well. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning at cityheatandair.com.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. Cityheatandair.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
All right, here we go. The most obvious to begin with is, of course, Arian Carter. I've been hot on him actually since Keenan Pili's first injury 2 years ago. I thought he would step in the middle because they had to have him do that. But as it turns out, he stayed on the outside. But when it comes to Arian Carter, I think he's a superstar waiting to happen. And I get that partly because of what I've seen, but I've also talked to former Vols like Fred White that think he is absolutely a superstar. I'm very hot on Arian Carter. I think there were times last year, from what I'm told, he kind of had to cover up for some of Jeremiah Tielander's mistakes. But no, I absolutely love Arian Carter. I think he's the next superstar in this defense.
I think so too. I think the biggest thing is Arian Carter has to not have those lapses in coverage that he had every now and then. There was a big one against Arkansas that I think you and I both agree, Dave. If he doesn't have that, Tennessee beats Arkansas, and then Tennessee gets a home playoff game, and then Tennessee is probably advancing in the playoff at that point. So that one lapse was a huge killer, honestly, thinking long term. So I think Arian Carter as a run stopper is incredible. I really do. I'm a huge fan of him as a run stopper. If he can become more effective in coverage, then I think Arian Carter could be an absolute deadly linebacker. And Tennessee really hasn't had in the Heupel era they haven't yet had like a superstar linebacker yet. They've had good, smart players sometimes, but Carter could be a superstar if he becomes effective in coverage.
I agree. The coverage thing does concern me. I think I think he's a little bit of a tweener. I almost think he could put on 20 pounds and be a guy that plays with his hand down like a James Pierce. How heavy is he if you want to look him up? But the issues in coverage are certainly something to be concerned about. But I think he's going to be an all SEC player. So then I'm obviously very hot on him. What do you think, Paris Hilton?
That's hot.
Agreed. All right, Jeremiah Telander.
You know, I get you're hot on him. I'm a little bit colder on him than you are. I think he should have developed a little more than he did down the stretch of last season. And I think it's a red flag how much he did not develop. So, you know, I'm not high on Jeremiah Telander. I'm just not. And
the reason I'm hot is I believe that Jeremiah Telander has received a lot of second team snaps instead of first team snaps. And I believe that's because Keenan Pili was supposed to be the guy middle of the past 2 years, and then he was out. So I think Telander I'm hot on him with a full off season of work, and that will begin with spring practice on March the 9th. Now we get into some depth because Tennessee only plays 2 linebackers. But first, Paris.
That's hot.
On Telander. Edwin Spillman.
That's hot.
I'm really high on Edwin Spillman from people I talk to. I know we haven't seen much of him on the field at this point because Tennessee pretty much sticks to its second level linebackers, and that's what they go with. But I just keep hearing more and more good things about Edwin Spillman. I don't know particularly if he's being groomed to take Telander's spot or Carter's spot, but I believe it's Carter. And I believe he'll do a really good job there when all is said and done. But right now, Edwin Spillman locking down the third linebacker role, at least at one of those positions, if not both, tells me that he's pretty good, and I think he will.
I think as an athlete, Edwin Spillman may be the best athlete among the linebackers in this roster. He has quicker feet than he is a decent size at 6'1", 234, but he's got incredibly quick feet. He actually, Dave, I don't know if you know this, as a sophomore in high school, clocked a 4.6 40, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, as a sophomore, it's really impressive.
Yeah. So I think Edwin Spillman has a lot of raw talent. There were a few moments of him in the game last year, and I remember watching his highlight reel as a recruit when he came out. His football instincts are not there. And let's be honest, Dave, for linebacker, not for most positions, but for linebacker, you're taking instincts over athleticism, aren't you? Isn't there an instinct of knowing where the ball is?
Yeah, see, I think T-Lander's a little bit of that, but I'm not going to turn down an elite athlete either. I mean,
so if you could put T-Lander's instincts in Spillman's body,
you'd have an all-SEC linebacker. There's no question in my mind. But see, I'm actually hot on Spillman.
What were you saying about Reno Thompson? Sorry.
Well, I mean, I think he was a great athlete that had good instincts. I don't think he had anywhere near the instincts of a Westmoreland or an Al Wilson. But I think he had the athleticism, probably played too light and was fast because of that. I think he had the athleticism to be able to overcome that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. Unfortunately for him, it didn't help him in the pros because he played for the most dysfunctional franchise in the world at the time.
Well, it wasn't just that. He just played too light. He just had trouble putting on weight, and he hit like a ton of bricks, and his body just came apart. I mean, it was going to come apart somewhere, but he did play for the Cardinals. You're right. That didn't help. Now we get to some Spillman's technically a backup, but we get to more backups. And let's go ahead and put on the poll. Where's our poll question stand now?
Yeah, and you didn't answer what you think, but it's did Tennessee win it or did Nate Oates lose it against Alabama? And I'm on Nate Oates lost it. Where are you on it, Dave?
No, I think Tennessee won it. Okay, so
worst coaching in the last 30 seconds I've ever seen in basketball.
Yeah, but I particularly liked how they got the 3-second violation on the next to last play. All right, so
that's bad coaching.
Well, I think it's
if you get a 5-second violation on the inbound, that's bad coaching.
Linebackers.
I'm sorry.
Jordan Burns.
I mean Jordan Burns. I'm cold on him. I think once these new early enrollees come in, he's going to get pushed down and he's going to hit the portal like Caleb Perry did. I think Jordan Burns is gone after this year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'll be cold on him. Let's get to some more backups. We would think, at least early enrollees, what kind of impact can they have? Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. There's your best.
All right, Caleb, coming up next. You want to throw it out there? Some early enrollees.
Yeah, let's start with Christian Gass. And I'm as high. I am hot like jet fuel on Christian Gass. Get it?
Yep, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I'm really, really hot on Christian Gass. I think he could actually work his way into a rotation pretty quickly. From my understanding is he is a incredible athlete. So
one of the problems is Tennessee doesn't rotate their young linebackers in enough. Barring injury, and Keenan Pili got injured a lot, but barring injury, I don't see other linebackers other than the two starters out there. I think that's a philosophical flaw, to be really honest with you. But I'll agree with you. I'm hot on Gass.
That's hot.
Jaden Harmon.
I'm hot on Jaden Harmon, honestly. I'm hot on him too. I think this linebacker crop is incredible. This is one of the best you could possibly get in a recruiting class.
Well, good stuff. All right, Jaden Perlow.
Jaden Perlow is the one I'm probably cold on in this group, but he's the only one I'm cold on in this group. But yeah, I think Jaden Perlow is just a body. I don't think he's. He was tested well. It comes out of Gwinnett County, right in the Atlanta area, but I can't. It's hard for me to think that there's anything specific or special about it.
This from David. Caleb, if you want to answer this, who's the freshman phenom? Gass, Harmon, or Perlow?
I'm going to go Harmon the most, but it's close between him and Gass.
Okay. All right. These guys will all be playing special teams. We had a question on that. I guarantee you that. Dylan says, I'm hoping Jaden Perlow, gets some clock as a freshman. He's the highest rated linebacker Hype has ever gotten. Yep, he is. So you would think that he would certainly have an impact, but I'm just telling you, you have to go back to this, and that is Josh Heupel just doesn't play a lot of first-year players. I mean, that's a fact. So let's get to Brendan Ains.
Not as hot as Gasher Harmon, but I'm still relatively hot on Brendan Aids. I think he's going to end up being a solid player for Tennessee in the future. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter, but I think you say that Tennessee doesn't rotate much, and they don't. But the third linebacker usually gets in, and I think he can make his way into being the third linebacker once he gets more experience.
What? The third linebacker, do you mean the backup at middle or the backup at strong?
I think a utility who could back up both. I think a utility who could back up both.
Okay, well, we'll see. Now, the walk-ons are Eli Purcell, Cody Duncan, Ben Bolton, Ryan Scott, Greer Short. Are we addressing any of these cats?
I'm hot on them as depth, baby. No.
That's hot.
That's it? I don't think any of these walk-ons are really going to pan out, do you?
No, I don't either. Not at all.
If they do, then you've got big-time linebacker spots elsewhere. Now, Dylan brings up a great point. Perlow that was a pretty big battle between USC and Georgia. So I think that Perlow is very good. David points out Jordan Burns has a chance to surprise as a freshman. I'm not ruling that out either. But again, I think this is Jeremiah T-Landers and Arian Carter's group of linebackers to run, right?
No, I totally agree. Totally 1,000% agree.
But I will say this. If something happens and Edwin Spillman has to step in there, I'm not really concerned. You?
I'm concerned because of his instincts. Again, instincts matter to me. He does have incredible athleticism, but does the lateral quickness outweigh the is the lateral quickness there? The 40 time and the size is there. I don't know if the lateral quickness is there, and that's kind of the issue. So we got to kind of watch out for that.
Yep. Speaking of, we will discuss some lateral quickness and some combine numbers and some interesting things that happened over the weekend. It will be Steve Hamer joining us a little bit later in the program with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, and it is time for Caleb to learn us something. That's right. And that's not correct English, but I meant it like that. This day in Tennessee sports history is now, and it's brought to you by our fantastic friends at the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. That's HOOK for 10% off.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports.
All right, this day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb, what do we got?
On this day, 5 years ago today, Tennessee beat 6th-ranked Kentucky on the road. They won 81-73. Why is the music still playing?
I don't know. I thought you'd like a little bit there.
It's hard for me to talk over the music.
Oh, sorry.
Tennessee beat 6th-ranked Kentucky on the road, 81-73. John Fulkerson had 27 points in that game. It was at Kentucky. Josiah Jordan-James and Yves Pons had 16 and 15 points. Jordan Boughton had 11. It was significant because this was a rebuilding Tennessee team after losing Grant and Admiral the year before, and that seemed like it would be enough to get Tennessee into the NCAA tournament race. Here's the problem. The same day that happened, the U.S. officially reported that COVID outbreaks had hit 7 different states. And a week later, everything shut down to flatten the curve, and which never happened, and altered all of history. But as history was being altered, Tennessee.
What's funny is the way you say that sounds so overly dramatic, but it was true.
It was true. It altered history. As history was being altered, Tennessee was in the midst of getting a thrilling win at Kentucky at the same time. That's kind of funny to think about.
All right. So, by the way, Timothy, thank you, sir, for becoming a member. He became a member for just $4.99. So, Timothy, I'm going to go ahead and put in my email so that you can send me your address, because you will win a very special gift from Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Anybody that joins for just $4.99 wins a gift certificate, a welcome gift to Hound Dogs of Knoxville. So you get free stuff worth $20. And if you use the promo code Hooked, you get 10% off. Hooked, you get 10% off. By the way, Stryker won last week, and my email is right there. He won the John Henderson helmet, but I have not heard from him yet. So if you could please reach out to me at that email, I would greatly appreciate it for all the great things that YouTube does. There's no way in God's creation to reach out to somebody from our end to yours. You can reach out to us. We've been working through this for like 6 months. So I don't think it's going to get fixed. So you're going to have to email me, and then we'll hook you up with that John Henderson helmet. But it is right here, and I'll be stopping by Sports Treasures to get another round of gifts, and we certainly appreciate that. We want to thank Hound Dogs for giving us our welcome gift as well. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates. Go to facebook.com and follow at Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. In exactly 2 minutes, Paul Finebaum says he thinks the Vols relied too much on Nico Iamaleava last season. Okay, I see this as completely different, but I respect Paul a lot, and I know that he has a lot of insight when it comes to talking to coaches and others, so we've already texted him to see if he could join us later this week. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. And when it comes to Lincoln, all right. You can be like Matthew McConaughey, Ted Russell, Lincoln.net.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln, Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so Dante Thornton ran a 4.340. Man, it just seems like there are times that you watch the NFL Combine and you're like, man, it just doesn't seem like my school got all they possibly could have out of him. And that to me is probably troubling for most Tennessee fans. And I thought that Dante Thornton running the 4.3 wasn't really a surprise, but it is going to be what the H is right now. And it's brought to you by our fantastic friends at Double D Piping. So we get to that right now. What the H is brought to you by Double D Piping.
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I was really hoping for his own sake we'd include Elijah Simmons in this What the H. But he showed up at 334. Should have showed up at about 325. And I guarantee you he would have done better than a 5.38 on his 40-yard dash. His vertical was 32, which speaks to his explosiveness. That's pretty impressive at 338 if you think 334 if you think about it, Caleb.
I agree, but I mean, the NFL looks for intangibles too, and they're going to think that he didn't take getting into shape as seriously as he should have.
No, definitely. If he shows up at 325, he may be he may be on the front of ESPN.com, right?
Yeah.
If he shows up at 325, I mean, suddenly he's a different type of player. You're thinking about a Vince Wilfork type of guy. Vince Wilfork is pretty special. That may be a reach. Okay, but what the H? Dante Thornton runs a what at the combine?
Dante Thornton ran a 4.3 flat at the combine, while at the same time drawing measurements of 6'4.5", round up to 6'5", and 215 pounds.
Okay.
Weighing.
And James Pierce did what at the combine?
So James Pierce ran a 4.47 combine, and which was incredible. Limited kind of everywhere else. James Pierce was, honestly, he didn't have the most impressive combine in a lot of ways, but his speed was just absolutely incredible and just blew everybody away.
Okay, which was the more disappointing player at Tennessee? Was it Thornton or was it Pierce?
And I phrase this as, who did Tennessee misuse more based on their combine performance, Thornton or Pierce?
Well, let's just go disappointing, because I don't know that. Well, Thornton was misused. Pierce was misused. I almost think that's equal.
Okay, so which player was more which player was more disappointing at Tennessee based on their combine performance? I'm going to say, okay, can I say this up front? Can I be a little bit millennial sympathetic participation trophy guy first?
Yes, lay it on me.
I don't think it's either of their faults, the level of disappointment that they had. But I think it's very clearly Dante Thornton, because I think Dante Thornton was banged up a lot of the time at Tennessee. And I think that cost him in a lot of ways. Dante Thornton is a speed guy, and he comes in last year hurt. By the time he gets healthy, Brew McCoy, his complimentary outside receiver, goes down for the season. And then Dante Thornton goes down for the season at the end of the year. They both come back this year, but Dave, here's the problem. Even with his speed, Dante Thornton's kind of an Alvin Harper type, right?
Yes. It's a very good comparison, because he kind of has the size and speed where some people will throw Randy Moss out there. I hate it when Randy Moss. I mean, he could run anything. He could run West Coast. He could run slants and been successful. Just happened to be really good at the go route. That's about what Dante Thornton is. And he's not going to win a lot of jump balls like we thought, but Alvin Harper didn't win a lot of jump balls. The former Vol, played for the Cowboys. He won a lot of passes because he was bare bleep open.
Right. Wouldn't you say Dante Thornton getting bare bleep open was dependent on the go-to wideout being a physical, imposing presence like a Michael Irvin was back in the day, like Brew McCoy before his injury was?
Yes, theoretically. The reason that Harper was so successful, and the reason I thought Thornton would be successful
is because you would have to roll coverage to the other side. And that's really, people get confused sometimes when they say your number one receiver. Your number one receiver is not necessarily your best receiver. It's the receiver that dictates coverage. And you have to roll coverage towards him.
So let's be fair.
Excuse me. I don't think anybody had a roll coverage towards Brew last year because of his lack of explosiveness. I think that they were able to play both receivers pretty straight up.
I agree. So Dante Thornton was more disappointing to me, but is it fair to say it wasn't his fault? Because Dante Thornton's profile required Brew McCoy to dictate coverage, and Brew McCoy couldn't dictate coverage. And the year before, it was Ramel Keaton, and Ramel Keaton certainly can't dictate coverage.
No.
And so with that in mind, I think Dante Thornton was a bigger disappointment, but I don't think it's Dante Thornton's fault. I think they thought they were getting, because this 2022, let's be honest, Dave, the reason Jalen Hyatt won the Biletnikoff is because Brew McCoy was dictating coverage. Right? I mean, more than anything else.
Yes.
That's the reason he won the
question.
Biletnikoff. And you're right. Nobody was there to dictate coverage for Dante Thornton this year. And so Dante Thornton was the bigger disappointment, but I don't think it's his fault. I still break with you. I don't think James Pierce was as much of a disappointment as people think. I mean, he was still affecting plays left and right at Tennessee this past year. And we're talking about a down year where I still think he had like 7 sacks. So it's hard for me to call him a disappointment when, again, he was dictating coverage on the line. He was drawing double teams and teams were running away from him all the time. So, I mean, James Pierce turned Joshua Josephs into an all-SEC caliber player just by his existence on the field.
Gosh, but if you're projected as the number one pick, how do you not have at least 8 to 10 sacks?
I don't think it's that. I think it's very easy to make sure a certain player doesn't get 8 to 10 sacks. Honestly, I do. And also, let's base it. There's an argument, Dave, that James Pierce overachieved because look at the rest of his combine performance. It wasn't that good. His vertical wasn't good. And a lot of the other stuff he showed at the combine wasn't good. He just had a 40 time. Well, a 40 time is not going to help you get around the edge a lot of times. So, look, I'm going to be honest. I think based on their combine performances, I think Dante Thornton was the bigger disappointment in college. But I don't like even saying that because it wasn't his fault he was a disappointment. And James Pierce, I think James Pierce actually, to a certain level, may have overachieved. And I think it kind of validates.
Oh, come on.
I do. James Pierce is a speedster lining up at the edge rusher. He may be even a little too small for the pros sometimes. And
okay, well, we'll have to agree to disagree with that. On that, I think he was asked to drop into coverage way too much. I don't think and again, I think he had a personal issue before the season that was very serious that I'm not going to get into, but I think that was a factor as well early in the season. But why in the world was he not able to overcome that? Was he just not physically ready? That's troubling. Was he not mentally ready? I don't
think you can keep James Pierce with his hands down the whole game. I don't
understand why he was in a 4-point stance ever. I'll give you that. I mean, he either needs to be in a 2-point stance or a 1-point or a 3-point stance all the time. One hand.
I think look, and Orange Blood says it, and I kind of agree. And Dave, you may disagree with me on this, but you talk about the criticism of Leonard Little. James Pierce may be somebody you do convert to an outside linebacker, not a middle linebacker, but an outside linebacker.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that, but really he is an outside linebacker with his hand down more often. So it's not as if that's a reach. Timothy had this to say. Super chat goes to Quincy Calhoun's college phone. What did he say?
She says James Pierce isn't a Reggie White DN. I'll go even further, Timothy. He's not even a Derek Barnett DN. Okay, I mean he's a little slim. He's a little too slim for that. You can't keep him up on the line. So I think they had to roll him in coverage more. I think it was kind of important I think it was important to disguise the defense. I think we're underrating how effective that was at times. I mean, Tennessee had one of the best defenses in college in school history this past year, doing things like that. Now, yes, the Ohio State game and the Georgia game, you got me. Defenses wilted in both of those games. Part of the reason the defenses wilted, though, is the offense wasn't really helping out. And I think we can agree on that. And so, and also Tim Banks wasn't willing to blitz what he should have more often in those games.
Okay, let's talk Dante Thornton for a second. Who was more misused? Is that our poll question, by the way?
Yeah. Well, no. Now it's who was a bigger disappointment, Thornton or Pierce.
Okay.
Let's look at Thornton for a second. It seemed like because Jalen Hyatt was kind of gazelle-ish, he was a long strider. He was a bigger guy than, let's say, a Squirrel White. Normally, we think a slot guy is smaller, right?
Right.
Okay, but Tennessee was onto something with Jalen Hyatt. They thought they could replicate that with Dante Thornton, and then they moved him to the outside. So here's the tough question. That is, was Dante Thornton more misused because they couldn't find which position they wanted him in? Or was James Pierce more misused because he was dropping into coverage, and when he was on the line, he was in a 4-point stance? Whew. That, to me, it's not often that I go right down the middle at 50-50, but you cost Thornton a year by thinking that he was a slot guy, and then you move him to the outside, so he has to learn a whole new position. And don't get me wrong, there have been offenses where you're expected to learn every position, but this is not one of those offenses. This is one of those offenses where you need to know your position. How many times did we see Brew McCoy slide inside and play slot?
Never.
No. That's just the way it is. Now, we can debate the philosophy on that, but the simple fact is that's the way it is. So let's get an update on our latest poll question. Listen, if you could convince me, James Pierce or Dante Thornton, who was more misused? Brought to you by Double D Fire Protection.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Caleb, what say you, sir?
Well, okay.
It's tough.
It's tough, but
it really may be this may be the most 50-50 of any question we've asked on this show.
Yeah, but see, this is where I'm breaking with you. I'm having a hard time blaming them for either of these too much, quite honestly. Okay, let's take Dante Thornton for a minute. Dante Thornton's biggest problem was that he was hurt. And then he never... Let me ask you this, Dave. Give me a game where Dante Thornton was healthy and there was a receiver to dictate coverage on the other side that he played when he was in Tennessee.
Well, that there hasn't been, but
that's a big deal.
Well, I agree. So, who was most misused or who was most disappointing? If you want to say disappointing, if you want to change, okay.
No, that's what I set up disappointing. I think Dante Thornton was more disappointing, but it's not his fault.
Okay, so
but I think he was more disappointing.
That's funny. We're totally opposite. I think James Pierce was more disappointing, but I think Dante Thornton was more misused. And that includes dropping James Pierce into pass coverage and all that stuff.
See, I don't think Thornton was misused that much because I don't think there was any I get what you're saying, moving him to the slot and then moving him to the outside. But Dave, I don't think there was any possible way for Thornton to be there's nothing they could have done to make Dante Thornton effective when he was at Tennessee. For the simple fact that there was no receiver. There was never a game he played where he was healthy and then the receiver on the other side was dictating coverage. Those two things and those two things have to happen if Dante Thornton's going to be effective.
Okay, well, there was never a game called in which James Pierce was allowed to just go rabid on the other.
See, this is where you and I agree. I think dropping James Pierce back in coverage was actually effective a lot of times. I think
no. It's effective 10% of the time. It's not effective 40 to 50% of the time, which is what they did.
Okay. Are we sure that Tennessee didn't effectively just run? We're talking about like this 4-2-5. It felt like maybe they ran more of a 3-3-5 this past year with James Pierce playing more outside linebacker than on the end sometimes.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then he should have been taught the fundamentals of playing
linebacker,
on standing up. I mean, that's the problem I had
But what we're saying, basically playing with the high safeties and the stunts and the dropping him back in coverage, that's why Jalen Milroe was so awful against Tennessee.
What's our poll question?
Who was a bigger disappointment, Dante Thornton or James Pierce? Thornton is winning at 81%.
Okay. I got to be with Dylan here, man. Dylan says you don't get talked about as a first overall pick, then you can't get 10 sacks in 12 games.
That happens with defensive ends all the time.
Some of those games are Kent State and Chattanooga for the love
and they're barely playing in those games because they're Kent State and Chattanooga. Okay, the only one who I ever saw get drafted because he was racking up stats against bad teams. That's what Kevin Sumlin did with Myles Garrett back in the day.
Okay, let me just throw out there. How many snaps do they play on average in the first half? 35, 40?
Probably, yeah.
45 against a Chattanooga or Kent State. Maybe they want to run up the score and look fantastic to get Josh Heupel all excited about his offensive numbers. Are you telling me that you can't get a sack in each one of those games, 2 sacks in each one of those games?
I don't think they used him a lot to get a sack in either of those games. Again, that's the thing. I remember, again, he drew so much attention. There was a commitment to teams to not let him get sacks.
Okay, but don't you owe it to some extent to James Pierce to let him roam in those games? Let him, I don't care if it's stat padded or not.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Because you said they did that last year. Are we sure they didn't drop him into coverage that much the year before when he did start to look like the number 1 pick? It's just his production dipped this year because teams were rolling an extra blocker over?
I didn't think they did the year before. No, I felt like when he was in the game, he was going after the passer, and that's what showed up to NFL scouts.
Okay, but I mean, he also got a pick 6 in the Citrus Bowl.
Well, you know, I mean, he could be at the right place at the right time. Maybe that was the fool's gold that they saw. Maybe they saw that interception. And they're like, hey, we can really surprise people because he can drop into coverage.
I mean, it seemed to work against Alabama. I'll just say that. I mean, basically Tennessee turned Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe went from a first-round draft pick to this guy will be a bust in the NFL solely based on what Tennessee did to him in that game. They basically laid a blueprint to show that Jalen Milroe will never make it in the NFL.
Okay. Listen, sounds like a lot of people agree with me. Travis says Caleb is a professional excuse maker.
Oh, okay. Is that where we're going? All right. Okay. I'm a professional caveat adder. How about that?
Yeah. By the way, but Daniel says Caleb knows his, I don't know if I can say that word on the YouTube, but
thank you, Daniel. Thank you. And you share a last name with the greatest control pitcher in the history of baseball.
Is that right?
Greg Maddux.
Okay. Now, Todd is calling me out, and I appreciate it. I do. He played 10 snaps against bad teams. 10 snaps. Come on, Dave.
They were hardly playing him. Yeah.
I'd play him.
By the way, that's where college football's so different now, because everybody says you can't take stats as much into account because they play more games. But you know this, Dave, back in the day, like let's say like 1995 when you were covering Tennessee, the starters were still playing the bulk of the snaps even against the bad teams, weren't they?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to combine Todd and Dylan's point because here's my point. Todd, he did play 10 snaps against bad teams. You should play 20 to 25 snaps against bad teams. They are, as a whole, this program is too soft and it's too protective of its players. They don't allow fighting in practice. They don't have physical practices. Yeah, Dylan says, I'll compromise that Pierce drew a lot of attention and dropped into coverage. But Pierce also had quarterbacks dead to rights and straight up missed the sack. You know how you avoid that? It's more physical practices and more real game time snaps. So what is the question? Is the question the bigger disappointment, or is the question the most misused? Because there are two different answers in my opinion.
The question right now is the bigger disappointment. I just have a hard time believing Thornton was misused, but right now the question is the bigger disappointment.
He came in the house as a slot.
I still think it could have worked out as a slot if he had a guy to dictate coverage on the outside. I mean, I think Thornton could play the slot or as the number 2 guy on the other side. I think he could have done either.
Okay. I guess we'll agree to disagree. Caleb's a pretty smart cat, so I'll probably question myself a little bit later and think about it. But, man, I don't know. We don't see it the same way there. It is time for this the stat of the day. Stat of the day is brought to you by our friend at the UPS store, Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. The link right down below. Stat of the day.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb. What do we got? Stat of the day?
Stat of the day is Saturday's last second shot by Jemai Meshack was the first buzzer-beating shot Tennessee had to win a game at Thompson Bowling Arena since guess when, Dave?
Man, I don't know.
1997, November the 17th. Jerry Green's second game coaching Tennessee, Charles Hathaway. Tony Harris took the ball, drove the length of the court, dished it to Charles Hathaway, who hit a layup as time expired to give Tennessee a 75-74 win over Miami of Ohio at the time. Just, I mean, an incredibly well-coached play by a bright man in Jerry Green, who knew to let Tony Harris drive the length of the court and give the ball to Charles Hathaway because he was just an amazing coach, and I just think you don't show him the respect he deserves.
Wow. Yeah, he's something special. You always got a chance when the silver fox is out there with his arms crossed on the sideline. I've said that before.
Stone Cold Fox, that's what he is.
Yeah, Work Truck's all about trucks. Trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits while having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Process is quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app how to work bodies installed. Pickup trucks of all sizes and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Contractor, you need Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and in downtown Birmingham for the entire inventory. Go online to worktrucksllc.com. Worktrucksllc.com with an X. Work Trucks, proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. I got a little bit out of order here, so I meant to get to the Paul Finebaum comments on Nico Iamaleava, which you do want to hear. Give me 2 minutes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7.
And here we go.
This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Thank you, Daniel. And Dave, you know your stuff too, man. You both do a great job. We appreciate that. We need the channel to go ahead and grow a little more. It is the off season. We understand that could be a challenge, but tell a friend as we're with you weekdays at 10 a.m. And as much as anything, click that like button. Always feel free to share. We greatly appreciate that. Paul Finebaum, who I have a lot of respect for, because Paul Finebaum to me is a mixture of poking the bear, which you need to do. And he's also a mixture of when he says something, he usually has information. He doesn't say, my sources told me, because that's very newsy. But he talks to everybody. And he said that he thought that Tennessee leaned too much on Nico Iamaleava. I actually thought it was the exact opposite. And I thought that they should have leaned on him in 2023-24. But they did not. Caleb, what do you make of this comment? And if you want to share with us the exact quote, feel free.
Yeah, so Paul was addressed, just to point this out, about a month ago. Paul said experts he talked to think Tennessee's going to go to a transitional year. But then he spoke with On3 in a behind the paywall interview, and he basically said that getting to the playoffs was key, and he said that's the new normal in college football, where you can live off that the short term. And he says, and I think Heupel will. So he thinks Tennessee's going to get back to the playoff, touted the schedule, and then also touted Nico. However, he proceeded to then say kind of an odd thing that I thought, which was that he basically said that he felt Tennessee relied too heavily on Nico last year. His quote was, I still think he's a bright coach, talking about Josh Heupel. I think it was just leaning too heavily on Nico Iamaleava last year. Now, that threw a lot of people off because a lot of people felt the way you did, which is that, like, really, it didn't seem like they leaned that heavily on Nico last year. It seemed like they leaned heavily on Dylan Sampson. At the same time, there is an argument, Dave, that they should have leaned even more on Dylan Sampson, because if you watch the way teams played defense last year, it's not that whether Heupel leaned heavily on Nico or Dylan, it's that defenses leaned heavily on making sure that Tennessee deep ball wasn't there. They sold out. So, Dave, there's an argument to be made, and I'm going to throw this out to you, where shouldn't Tennessee have just stayed going to the well, because no matter how many times they went to the well, defenses weren't cheating up. They were selling out to make sure that deep balls weren't there.
Wait, let me make sure. What's the well?
Running the ball. Shouldn't they have just stayed running the ball even more because of the fact?
I had no problem with Tennessee's offense last year. I mean, execution, yes, but the two tight ends being a little bit more conservative given what defenses were doing, I actually thought it was a really good coaching year on offense by Josh Heupel, which I know people are saying, like, oh, what are you talking about? 2022, they scored 500 points a game. Did I do a new voice? No, that to me.
Now who does voices?
I know, I'm done. Oh, that pesky DNA. But I will say this. I just don't believe they leaned on him enough. And I would have put more pressure on him in 2023 by playing him. I would have probably stuck with, again, I like what they did coaching wise last year, but I probably would have stuck with the aggressive 3 wide receiver approach a little bit more than they did, Caleb.
All right, I'm gonna take a little bit of a different approach, believe it or not.
And let me just say, people are going back and forth about Paul in the message board. Yes, his part of his job is to stir stuff, but he does share information and realize that he is really tied in with the university. I believe he's spoken to some journalism classes, may even be a booster. I don't know that for sure. But I think you need to know that he has Josh Heupel's ear and vice versa. So he's not just making this up out of nowhere.
No, he's absolutely not. I totally agree with that. All right, here's my hot Paul Finebaum take on this and why I think he's right. Let's just bring up some stats real quick. Tennessee last year ran the ball 45 times, and they threw it 29 times per game. So
is that right? 45 to 29?
Yes. So theoretically, saying they lean too heavily on Nico doesn't make sense. However, Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. Given the way defenses were playing last year, given how they were playing Tennessee, I'd have run the ball 55 times and thrown it 19 times. I know that's crazy. Look, I think it was frustrating Josh Heupel. I think he really wanted the deep balls to be there for Nico. But who cares if they're going to sit there? The defense was blatantly saying, we'll let you run it all over us. We just don't want you to beat us with one of those deep balls through the air like 2022. And if you're Josh Heupel, you should patiently stick it on the ground the whole time.
Don't forget this too, Caleb. Look at his receiver group. Squirrel White hurt. Dante Thornton hurt. Brew McCoy doesn't have his explosiveness. That's why I'm one of the few that think that with Mike Matthews and Chris Brazzell, that Tennessee's addressed its wide receiver issues, at least with the first string. I've got questions when it comes to the second string in depth, but no. Now, Timothy does say, and I think there's something to be said for this, no creativity. In fact, now short routes, jet sweeps, crossing routes, etc. Now, I think they're missing some creativity there. I think that went with Alex Golish to Tampa. Dylan says, to be fair, Tennessee had hardly passed over the middle of the field. I don't even remember seeing Hendon throw a slant. No, he didn't. This offense is built on deep digs and pushing the ball downfield. I do believe Tennessee found itself in a little bit of a conundrum when it had two tight ends because they couldn't push it down the field, Caleb, and that was troublesome.
I think they found themselves getting just a little bit frustrated. I'm going to say this. Heupel, where he showed a little bit of Steve Spurrier last year, is, Dave, you know this. You talk about the Prowler package. If you play soft coverage on Spurrier all game, it doesn't matter if he's running the ball well. He's going to get impatient and going to try to start forcing some deep balls, right? That was always his weakness, wasn't it, when he was at Florida? It felt like Heupel was getting frustrated by that last year. It felt
But he answered it. Steve Spurrier wouldn't answer it. He wouldn't run the football.
No, but what I mean is Heupel was running the football, but eventually Heupel was like, by the third quarter, was like, why are they still playing this soft coverage? Heupel doesn't want to have to do that. You know what I mean? He's the Madden player. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Do you remember the Madden game that had Michael Vick on it, where like everybody loved to be Michael Vick and run?
Yeah, it was stupid. You could run left, run right, and couldn't be stopped.
I would drop my two cornerbacks in spy a lot of times, and because remember, you can manually audible them to spy. And so I would drop them to spy and just keep them out there, and I'd run a dime package and keep them at spy. But if you play somebody who likes to run that way with Michael Vick, I'm leaving guys wide open when I do that, by the way. But I know they at their heart, they want to run. You know what I mean? So they're still going to want to run left or run right. And eventually they're going to cave and do it because that's why they're playing, to have a little fun. I think Heupel at his roots still wants to get those deep balls hit. That's what he wants. And so this is where I think Finebaum was saying he was leaning too heavily on Nico. I'm not going to say leaning heavily on Nico. I think he was trying to force Nico into a Heisman contender last year at times. And I think
not for long. I don't understand why.
Not terribly. I think he should have ran it 55 times and thrown it 19 times. I think it should have been that level because defenses were playing so soft. It was insane how soft they were playing on Tennessee last year, quite honestly. And I would have literally run it every play. I don't understand why they didn't. And I would have gone like Philip Fulmer, 1998 versus Florida, Philip Fulmer, 2003 versus Miami. I'd have gone that level of like, remember the 2003 Tennessee-Miami game? And you talk about a best coach game Fulmer ever had, and I agree. He literally just said, we're running it every time. We're just going to wait for Miami to implode because they're not disciplined. They don't play smart football, and we know they're going to screw up. And, I mean, I would have done that the whole year. And so even with the running it almost twice as much as throwing it, I don't think the gap was enough. I think they played way too soft zone. That 3-3-5 commitment was too much. And I think Heupel wanted to get big first downs, and I think he was frustrated by the 4 yards of carry. But Dave, if you're getting 4 yards of carry, you're getting first downs every 3 plays. I mean, I'd have stuck with it.
Okay. Make it a poll question. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take it a little bit further than that. As I'm going to say that Tennessee did that Tennessee leaned too much on Nico or not enough. And let's just make it as simple as that, because I believe it's not enough. I don't believe it was even close to enough. I look at other quarterbacks that were first-year starters. They put an awful lot on Carson Beck at Georgia. Now, maybe they put too much on him and he got frustrated and left, but they put a lot of – listen, you just don't have enough time. This could be Nico's last season. I mean, if he goes and balls out and he is a Heisman finalist, he's in New York, and he's one of the top picks in the NFL, you're going to look back, no matter what happens this year, and say, man, what could have happened in 2024?
Yeah, but they weren't playing Georgia the way they were playing Tennessee. You play, and Dylan Elam, actually, Dylan, great point, Dylan. I don't want to share this point by Dylan real quick, because he says Kirby Smart laid the foundation how to stop at a 3-3-5 tight with 6 DBs and pressure with 4 to 5 defensive linebackers. I agree, Dylan, but you know what stops that? Regular draws, just draws the whole way down the field, and you're getting 4 and 5 yards. And I think the thing that was happening was Tennessee, Heupel was getting that, but I think a moment would come where he was like, I just want to hit that deep shot. I want to get that first down. And I think he'd move to it too quickly. I'll just be honest. I think I don't think he should have been sticking with that ground game all the way through the fourth quarter of games, honestly. And I think mostly he was, but I think to a certain degree he wasn't. And I think it proved costly. Sometimes he tried to use Nico in the run game. That's where I think they relied on Nico too heavily too. Let's not forget this, Dave, that Nico did have 109 carries last year. So they tried to utilize him to run a lot.
That almost seems like a typo, doesn't it?
It does. It does. No, but they ran him 109 times. Nico had more carries than Peyton Lewis or Deshaun Bishop. I'm sorry, I got a problem with that. And I mean, I think
some of those are scrambles.
Yes, some of them are scrambles. And by the way, there were a lot of scrambles around because of the 3-3-5 people were playing with. But I think if you just stuck it on the ground, and not just with Dylan Sampson, but with Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop too, just keep it on the ground. I mean, I'm dead serious. If that number, Dave, is 55-19, I honestly think Tennessee's beating Arkansas. And I mean, I know that's crazy, but I don't think Tennessee, I mean, it's crazy to say, but I don't think Tennessee was conservative enough given how the game went. They threw it 29 times against Arkansas and ran it 36. They should have ran it 45 and thrown it 19, particularly when they had a 14-3 lead. So that's where I land on it.
So earlier, it was Timothy. Timothy, here is my email. If you could, please, I would greatly appreciate it. Send me your address, because you are going to receive a gift certificate from Hound Dogs. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. If you join the channel, you get a welcome gift, which is a gift certificate to Hound Dogs. You can also use the promo code hooked to get an additional discount on whatever you choose. HDKnoxville.com. HDKnoxville.com. I want to close with this. Good comment by Adam. I agree we relied on Nico too much, but mainly because he wasn't ready. If Nico was our quarterback, we didn't lean on the quarterback enough. We'll agree to disagree on that. But one thing we can agree on is the commissioners, ADs, and all the powers that be bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Got nothing done in Dallas seemingly. Will the 2025 format change? I don't think there's any way it changes, Caleb. They just didn't get much done.
Yeah, so this meeting happened in Dallas last week, and I kept looking every day because I'm like, whenever this comes out, I can't wait to talk about the bombshell about this. Everybody's been mum and quiet since this meeting happened. So let's talk about what's really going on here. I'm going to break down the whole situation for you guys. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to exclusively make all decisions for the college football playoff going forward from 2026 on. That's when the new contract is. It's their way or the highway. But theoretically, you think they can wait a year. They are very upset with the way the seeding went in the college football playoff last year, and they're worried if it happens again, it'll destroy the brand of what they're trying to build because of how ineffective the seeding was. They want straight seeding 1 through 12. And they want it this year. They don't want to wait. They want it this year. Obviously, the other athletic directors don't want the straight seeding because you get a double payout for your conference when a team gets a bye. But what their fear is that if the team gets a bye, and what their fear is if they push back on that, I mean, Dave, the SEC and the Big Ten hold all the cards. They could literally say, we are going to have our own playoff in 2026 and you're not a part of it. I mean, they have that level of power. They could just ice out all ACC and Big 12 and Group of 5 teams, period. And so those leagues know it. Here's what I think's happening. I think the other leagues are going to agree to the straight seeding of 2025, but they're negotiating some sort of concession for the 2026 playoffs and on from the SEC and Big Ten before they agree to it. And that's what they're trying to see. Because the SEC and Big Ten really want the straight seeding in 2025. Now, I think you and I both like the straight seeding too, but the problem with the straight seeding is, Dave, that just destroys conference championship games at that point. If there's no bye to play for.
I'm pretty much of the mindset, as much as I hate to say it and agree with you, that the conference championship games are pretty much dead anyway.
They are. They're effectively dead. So that's where the automatic qualifiers are going to come in starting in 2026. But the other leagues really don't want automatic qualifiers. They think that's just going to destroy everything about college football. And to be fair, Dave, I'm actually on the side of the Big 12 and ACC on this. I don't believe in a conference should just be, even if it is the SEC and Big 10, they shouldn't just be reserved a number of teams to go to the playoff. That's insane. That's absolutely ridiculous and stupid. So, I mean, naturally, they're going to have more teams go because they're the better leagues. But that's where this whole fight is, and we are at a total impasse, and not one move has been made. And the crazy part is, spring practice is about to be underway for college football. They're working on 2025 season, and they haven't agreed on the format for 2025. And there's still nothing past 2025 because this playoff format ends in 2025. They worked out no deals in 2026.
Yeah, this reminds me of when the NBA, at the All-Star break, said we're going to take that. Was it 5? And it was 3 games. It was a 3-game first round in the NBA playoffs, and said we're just going to expand it to 5.
It was 5 to 7. It was 5 to 7.
5 to 7, and then I was like, you can't just make a change like that in the middle of the season. But I guess that's what the powers that be. I hate even calling it the NCAA. I guess that's what they're going to do, and that's incredibly unfortunate, Caleb. I mean. It doesn't show a lot of foresight, but what it shows to me is a lot of people don't get along. Now, let me ask you this. Philosophically, theoretically, whatever itically you want to word you want to use, if it was the Big Ten and the SEC versus everybody else, who has the power?
Big Ten and the SEC have literally all the power.
Okay, I agree with that. I agree with that, but I was just wondering if everybody else, might be able to slay the dragon.
No, here's what some people actually believe. They believe that the Big Ten and SEC are just shooting from the hip on crazy negotiations to try to create chaos, so then they can get an excuse to just leave everybody and form an AFC, NFC on their own. That's what a lot of people think they're doing.
I actually think that.
You think that too?
Yep.
That they're just straight up screwing with everybody else because they know they want to leave and they hold all the cards. And now here's the issue with college football. It's when you bring up the NBA. There's a bunch of conference commissioners meeting that met last week. Dave, what's the problem with conference commissioners?
I don't know. They party too much? I don't know.
Their job is to look out for their conference, but what's best for their conference is not best in the long-term interest of college football a lot of times. And so they all have competing jobs. Think about this with the NBA. Obviously, the Lakers would probably like a larger salary cap than the Hornets because they want to buy players. But they understand that the need for a salary cap helps elevate the league as a whole for parity, right? So they'll make a little bit of sacrifice. There's no commissioner or governing body of college football. Why would the SEC ever want to make a sacrifice? What good is it for them, honestly? And that's been the problem with this the whole time. And the same with the Big Ten. Why would the Big Ten want to make any sacrifice? And look, by the way, but what we're not talking about, and this is what we're really not talking about here, and this is the other reason these other leagues are involved and why they're benefiting. Guys, the SEC and Big Ten can't agree with each other on how they want this format to be going forward. So the reason the other leagues are involved, I believe, and tell me if I'm a conspiracy theorist, Dave, I think so either side can win in their negotiations with each other. They're going to the other leagues to try to get other leagues on their side, whether that be the Big 12, Group of 5, ACC, or whatever.
Okay, bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. The SEC and Big Ten are just messing with the rest of the college football world.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
Here's my theory, Caleb, that on any bargaining chip, and I'm just going to throw this one out there, like the Big Ten and the SEC say, we want 4 automatic bids. And you and I are against automatic bids, but they're not. They want 4 automatic bids. And I believe the Big 12 and ACC comes back to them and they say, okay, can we get 4 too? Thinking, nah. Okay, can we get 3? Nope. 2? Probably not. I think that's what's going on. And I think it's an auto bid thing. And I think they're telling them, basically, they're putting them in their place. And they're saying, if you don't like it, we'll just meet next month and see what happens. And it's going to be the same answer. And eventually you're going to get tired of that answer. And you're going to say, fine, we'll take 1 auto bid. Deal? Or we'll take no auto bids. I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC, if they go no auto bids and go to 16 or 18 teams, they're still going to get 4 in.
Oh, they'll get, the SEC would have like 6 in if they went to 16.
Last year they would have 6. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, that's why I'll tell you this. See, the Big Ten wants to go to 14 with auto bids for the SEC and the Big Ten. The SEC wants to go to 16 with no auto bids because the SEC knows that with no auto bids, Dave, they would actually get more bids than if there were automatic qualifiers because they would have had 6 last year. So if you're the SEC, so this is where the rub is between the Big Ten and the SEC. The Big Ten wants those automatic bids. The SEC actually would rather just expand the playoff and wield all the power and just straight seed and call it a day, pretty much.
How about a little Steve Hamer up next with Caleb Calhoun? I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. And I saw it firsthand because I was just laying in my bed in the middle of the night, insomnia, and I found the Jeep I wanted, and boom, it was done. And I absolutely love it. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
And here we go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. banksandjones.com. Coming up later this week, I want to visit with Barton Simmons. You're like, why do you want to visit with that cat? He's the general manager now at Vanderbilt, and with a background in college football recruiting. So he will join us. Also, we've reached out to Paul Finebaum, and we hope to visit with him as well, because he had an interesting take that Tennessee leaned on Nico too much. Just let me ask you a question. Just by the nature of this offense, don't you have to lean on the quarterback almost too much, and your receivers particularly, to make the right reads? I mean, can you really run out there and play quarterback and not lean on a guy to make the right reads, the right throws, that sort of thing?
No, your quarterback has to have a base level of skills, but the question is, how much do you have to use them to throw based on the defense and the defenses that are being run? I mean, yeah, you can't go out there with a there are certain quarterbacks that no matter what, they can't play in this system. I think you and I have all the respect in the world for Josh Dobbs and what he did and the work ethic that he has and the leader that he is, and he was an athlete. He would be horrible in Josh Heupel's system. That arm, like, you have to have arm strength, and that arm would just be it wouldn't be enough, honestly.
Joe Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbertCollision.com. JoeNewbertCollision.com. Also want to thank our friends when it comes to car work. Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports that we said hello. And Caleb, I was were you surprised that they ran him over 100 times last year? Now, a lot of those are scrambles.
Yes.
There were a lot of design runs, especially the second half of the season.
Now, again, they didn't run him. To be fair, remember this: in college, sacks count as runs for quarterbacks.
Right. And scrambles where you might get a yard.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, actually. And scrambles where you might get a yard. So with that in mind, we can just pull this up real quick. Tennessee did allow 30 sacks last year, so I guess technically only 79 times did he run, but that's it. But I don't think all 30 of those sacks were on Nico, though. So at the same time, probably in the 80s, but still ran more than Deshaun Bishop or Peyton Lewis. And that kind of stands out to me. I think that's kind of weird that
they just didn't believe in Peyton Lewis for whatever reason. Maybe it was because, he had the shoulder and the hip injury, but I talked to him a month before the season. It was a week before spring fall camp opened, and he said he was good to go. And he was perfectly fine. Now, players say that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I will tell you that standing next to him, and I'm including Alvin Kamara in here, but he is one of the most impressive physical specimens. And I'm not counting Jalen Hurd because I thought Jalen Hurd was too tall. I think as a running back, you can be too tall unless you're special like Derrick Henry. Okay, that would be the exception. But I think your hit zone can be too big, and I worried about Jalen Hurd's hit zone. To me, I stand next to Peyton Lewis, and it's like standing next to Jamal Lewis. That's not to say he'll be as good, but I'm just saying physically, the way the man's put together by God, he's pretty good.
Who was a more freakish athlete for their position in 97? Jamal Lewis or Leonard Little?
Oh, Little.
Little
Yeah.
Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, Little because just physically he was a freak. I mean, the guy must have had like 6% body fat. I mean, it was freaky. I mean, he had abs on top of abs. The thing about Lewis that was so special, though, was he just ran like somebody had just stole his mom's wedding ring. I mean, he was going after somebody. When I saw him run the first time, I thought he was a physical athlete. I'd heard good stuff about him. I guess it was the week after the Florida game. And he went out there when everybody was upset about Mark Levine getting all those touches against Florida. Well, you should be upset about that, but they just didn't run the ball, period. But when I saw Jamal Lewis run, I was like, something's wrong with that guy. Like, he's very angry at people.
Yeah, until he got his injury, and then he didn't run like that ever again at Tennessee. But who did run like that, what you just bring up, is Travis Henry. I think Travis Henry sought out linebackers to run into rather than to evade them. I think he took pride in knocking them over, honestly.
No, I totally agree with that, but I thought Jamal had that, but more physical ability. But you're right. Once he got hurt, he saved himself for the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of guests we're going to have on this week, we're not really going to have on this guest this week, but Dave, Casey Anthony has joined TikTok. We should bring her on. She's an Ohio State fan. So,
I don't know who Casey Anthony is.
The woman who got off after killing her 2-year-old son.
Oh, that's weird because I watched the Lacey Peterson. See, I don't follow that stuff in real time. I'm like, let it all happen. But I watched the Lacey Peterson documentary.
Really?
Yeah, he did it.
Oh, he totally did it.
Just to let you know, he did it. And I've never heard of a guy that's accused of something so serious basically hurt his reputation just by smugness.
That's true.
He was just so smug. It was like, well, we want to let him go. We want to rule him out, but he's the smuggest SOB that I've ever come across. All right, Steve Hamer definitely is not a smug SOB. He's a fantastic man, and we love it when he joins us. Steve Hamer, right now, former Vol. Look at him, man. He's a sharp dresser. That sweater, that sweater just makes me want to hug you.
Hey, I appreciate you guys saying that. It's always good when your wife dresses you, man. That's all I can say. You just get up and you wear what's acceptable in her sight, and you just kind of go on from there.
Yep, absolutely. That looks like a very fluffy, fun to hug sweater. Okay, so here we go. Let's get rolling because I got a couple of topics I want to get to. We're going to talk about the Lady Vols, but first, Steve, let me just get your thoughts on Tennessee's win against Alabama. If there's been a game there was more hype leading up to that paid off any better, I can't remember it in Thompson Bowling Arena.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder why College Game Day wasn't here on Rocky Top.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. They wanted to go elsewhere, but you have 5 versus 6. A very pivotal matchup in terms of not only SEC seeding, but national implications as well, when you think about the possibility of having a number one seed, right? In all aspects, I think they were playing for a number one seed. And if you look at the great prognosticator Joe Lunardi, you know, he's the gospel when it comes to seeding. He's got Tennessee now as having ascended to the number one seed line level. But you talk about a game that lived up to the hype. Just punch, counter punch. Man, guys getting after it. The only part that I wished would have been a little bit different was the officiating on both ends of the floor. I turned to someone. I watched the first half on floor level, and I turned to someone next to me and I said, "Man, there is no flow to this game because every other second there's a whistle, and good, bad, or indifferent, both sides were affected, and you just can't have 20 fouls called in the first 10 minutes of a game. It can't happen, right?" When you juxtapose that with the way that other games have been officiated, where they're letting you bump, letting you push a little bit, letting you hand check a little bit, man, it's hard on players, it's hard on fans, and I just wish that the game would have had a different flow to it. But other than that, man, it was just a fantastic game for Tennessee to be down by 4 points with 30 seconds left and somehow scratch, claw, do all of the things necessary to give them a chance to win it in the end. Man, we may talk about this, but man, was there a bigger player than Jemai Mashack in that entire basketball game? And I know Chaz had points. Jordan Gainey, perhaps his best game of the year, saved the Illinois game. But look at the sequence, the last few sequences of what Jemai Mashack did, whether it's on the free throw line, boxing out, drawing a foul, whether it was being the catalyst for that 5-second call, and then making the game-winning shot. I mean, it just lived up to the hype, man. Just a tremendous basketball game by both teams.
Yeah, Steve. I'll be the negative Nancy on this in a second, but I'll be positive first.
That's a stunner. It's a stunner.
I was going to actually ask you about Jemai Mashack in that last 30 seconds. I mean, it's crazy. Is that the most impressive last 30 seconds of a sequence you've ever seen in a college basketball game? Because it is for me, honestly.
Well, I will say that is second. Now hear me out. I remember circa 1993, Rick Pitino's on the sideline with the Kentucky Wildcats here at Thompson Bowling Arena. Allen Houston has to make the first, miss the second on purpose. Corey Allen gets the rebound. Corey Allen falls away, gets fouled, makes the shot, goes to the free throw line, makes the free throw, and we win over who was going to ascend to the number one team in the country, Kentucky Wildcats. That's one of the best atmospheres I've ever been in. Probably one of the only times that I've been a part of a positive court storming. So, but that what you saw Saturday was just hard to beat, man. The amount of fandom, if you will, after he made that shot, everyone was just in full throat. Caleb, Dave, I literally, and I mean this when I say this, I literally stood up and screamed as loud as I could. And I got such a blood rush to my head, I had to sit down and because I was going to pass out. But it was just the atmosphere, man. It was so exuberant, so exciting. And it was just unlike something that a lot of our fans had ever seen.
How much is Jemai Mashack kind of the X factor? I feel like I know what to expect from Igor, Chaz, Dubar, Zakiah. But I feel like that there's a little bit of up and down with Mashack, but when he's up, man, this team's hard to beat.
And I think you probably heard some of the comments from Coach Clark last week regarding people that had some unsavory things to say about Ja'Mon Meshack and why he was still in the starting lineups. Ja'Mon Meshack is, to me, one of the most valuable players on this basketball team because of not only what he brings on the defensive level every single night, not only because of his toughness and his grit that he displays, not only for all of that, but he's the ultimate teammate, right? He's the ultimate teammate. And you may get 9 points from him, you may get 2 points. You may get 12, you may get 4. As long as he continues to be the constant defender, as long as he remains the consummate chemistry guy, the glue guy, you can't have him out of the starting lineup. You just can't. He means too much to this program. And there may be people out there that will differ, and we can argue that ad nauseum, but he's too much of a glue guy and means too much to this basketball team. Again, we need to look no further than the last minute and a half of the basketball game on Saturday. If he's not in, we don't win. And that's point blank.
Agreed.
Steve, I want to draw a couple of concerns from the game just real quick. So the first is, even though he's Tennessee's primary scorer, there does still seem to be an issue with Chaz Lanier doing certain things right in crunch time. This was the second game of the year with the game on the line. He missed a very key free throw. And I mean, I know a lot of players don't like to talk about this, but we analysts do. So is there a concern that the moment gets too big for him sometimes?
Yeah, I could see that's a valid concern when it comes to free throws late in the game. And I won't say that it's just him, because there was a stretch in the game where a plus 83% free throw shooter in Zakai Ziegler missed 4 in a row.
That's true.
On Saturday. And that was huge, right? You thought, okay, man, we can stem that tide a little bit, knock down some free throws. Zakai can get into a rhythm and we'll be fine. And he misses the first, misses the second. Then, a couple of series down the floor, he misses the third, misses the fourth. And then it's in your mind, right? Then it's all in your mind. So I see the concern, but I'll also say this. If you look at the way Chaz Lanier is starting to play on both ends of the floor in crunch time, particularly on the defensive end of the floor on Saturday, Chaz was all in. I mean, bumping guys, bumping cutters, trailing screens, getting his hands in. He has become a much better defender. Then when you go to the offensive end of the floor, Chaz again is turning the corner. He's fading screens, he's curling screens, and he's knocking down shots. So I'm not necessarily worried about that from the offensive end as much as I am from the free throw line, because, man, we all know this. The charity stripe can be a tough place, right? Because you're by yourself. And people out there think, oh, Steve, man, it's a free throw. You should be able to hit a free throw. Well, guess what? The average fan doesn't have 25,000 people watching in the arena, along with another million people watching via television, with all of their hopes and dreams riding on a free throw. That's tough. It's hard. And I will say that concern is valid, but, man, I would rather have him, Zakai, at the free throw line. I'm going to ride or die with those guys, man. I know that he's missed a couple, but I'm going to ride or die with those guys.
Yep, I agree with that. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. let's be honest. When Jemiah shot that, what was it, 40-footer? Did you think that was going to even hit the backboard?
From my vantage point, I had moved upstairs and I was watching, and because of the way that where I sit, it's kind of angled, and you couldn't see if the ball was going in. When he released it, Dave, in my mind, I thought immediately it's got a chance because it's online. Now, whether it hits the backboard, whether it hits the rim, whatever, it's online. And, I got to be honest, man. I felt like he's going to make the shot. When it left his fingertips, I thought, man, he may make this shot. And sure enough, it goes in. And again, the place just it goes into pandemonium, but it just looked good initially from the way he shot it.
So, Steve, before we move on, I wanted to ask you one more question. I know a lot of people are high on him as a coach. How baffling was Nate Oates' final 30 seconds of that game coaching on the sideline? That I don't understand how he left 2 timeouts on the floor and then had no defense on that final shot.
Yeah, there is a confluence of errors by Nate Oates in Alabama basketball. One, if you find yourself, everybody knows this, in your mind, if you're taking the ball out of bounds, if I get to 3, it's timeout. I'm going to take it out of the official's hands. Not going to do it. But I think, Caleb, you got to take a step backwards from that, because it doesn't start there. It starts in the last media timeout, where if you're a coach, you tell your guys, we have 2 timeouts left. If you find yourself in trouble, if you find yourself trapped, if you find yourself on the floor and people are diving in, timeout, 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 get it in their minds right away that we have 2 timeouts left. That way, when you fast forward to that 5-second count, that never happens because it's fresh in the guy's mind. Like, oh no, I got two timeouts. But that's where it starts. And then I will say this. That same play that you saw that was drawn up by Coach Barnes, we also used that play in Illinois, and it worked to perfection. You know why it worked to perfection? Because if you have a Zakai Ziegler or a Gainey running at you full speed, your natural inclination as a defender is to backpedal as quickly as you can. You're going to backpedal. So it was well scouted by Nate Oates because they did not let Gainey get the ball, and they shielded Zakai Ziegler from catching that. So Jemiah, credit to him, as quickly as he could, drove up the floor, got a screen because a guy's backpedaling, had no idea that the screen was there, and then he makes the shot. So there is a lot of fault that has to fall on the shoulders of Nate Oates, right? Ton of fault. You got to call timeout. You got to do whatever it takes to let the guys know that you do have timeouts. And you got to tell those guys, again, Caleb, why didn't you call a timeout when you saw that Tennessee was setting up the play?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Baffling.
I mean, if you didn't call the timeout on the 5 seconds, then as soon as you saw the Tennessee was lining up to run that play, hey, timeout. Nope. Now I've seen what you got. I'm going to make you change it. And I may come at you with a 3/4 court press. Maybe slow you down just a little bit. I'm going to try something different. But that's the most mind-boggling thing to me. Why didn't you call the timeout when you saw what Tennessee's trying to do?
Fair point. Let's turn to the Lady Vols for a moment. Lady Vols loss. They seem to be stumbling down the stretch a little bit. I know that Kim Caldwell asked an awful lot out of her players. How concerned are you that they might be out of gas?
Yeah, that I'm concerned. You thought that Kentucky was just going to be a blip in the radar. It is is when you look back at the Kentucky game immediately after the game was over, did you look at that game and go, man, that's just an aberration, right? You know, you go on the road, sell out, you didn't have your best game. They played exceedingly well. It is what it is. You will pop right back for the Georgia game. Georgia only had 3 conference wins. They were really struggling. We go out, we do what we do, and we win. The problem is you got it handed to you in Lexington, and then you come out and you scored 2 field goals in the first quarter yesterday against Georgia. I saw it. You guys saw it. You know, they looked something's a bit off, right? They looked a little bit lethargic yesterday. I'll say this though. I'll say this. Coach Caldwell did not win those games that she's won in conference over UConn, those big wins, by accident. She's got to find the right buttons to push right now to get the ladies to understand that because of what has happened in Lexington and what happened yesterday, you have 2 guaranteed games left. You got a guaranteed game next or this week in the tournament. If you get bounced from that, you got 1 game left that's guaranteed, whether that's here at the Food City Center or elsewhere. Whatever it takes, Coach Caldwell has got to find the right button to get these ladies re-energized, to get them refocused, and to make sure that they know, man, that your season could end very, very quickly. I don't know the status of Talasia Cooper. I hope that she's back for the tournament because I think that she's got to be a bell cow for this basketball team. But regardless, it's got to be next man up, and we got to be ready to bounce back and play quickly.
Steve,
or in Caleb's case, next lady up. Go ahead, Caleb.
Steve, doesn't it seem that when teams slow it down, the Lady Vols just have a lot of trouble scoring out of their half-court sets? Like, not that they can't score in the paint, but it seems like they have trouble running their offense, don't they, with their lack of size?
Yeah, I think, for the majority of the season, we thrive on turning other teams over. That's what we do. We want to speed you up. That's why they press. That's why I liken to what they do now. You guys probably, and Dave, you'll remember this, but the 40 minutes of Hades from Nolan Richardson, the man in suits and boots.
Yeah.
Man, he was very much so known for the full court press, and then they're going to run and jump you. So as soon as a guy, turns their back, you got a defender running up behind them, and it's a trap, and they want to turn you over. They want to speed you up as much as possible. And, the more they can turn you over, the more fast break points you get. And then you don't have to get into a half court set, 75% of the time. Well, against Kentucky, didn't really happen. Georgia, we turned them over, but at the same time, Georgia yesterday was able to make long passes, get easy layups. They made the extra passes, and they weren't worn down by the press. So we had a hard time really doing what we needed to do yesterday. And when you don't have those easy attempts at the rim, the layups, because of the press and the turnover, then when you're put into an offensive set where Georgia, quite frankly, did an amazing job of just guarding their yard. Lady Vols couldn't turn the corner. They couldn't make the extra pass. And then it became 5, 4, 3, 2. I'm just going to get up a shot. And that was troubling.
Yeah.
And then your thoughts on Cooper and where she is to this point, because she is obviously one of the key cogs in this team, and she kind of exemplifies that, which maybe seems a little worn down at this point. If out of the whole team, she kind of seems like she may be a little worn down.
Yeah, I love Talasia Cooper's game. I think that she probably is unlike any Lady Vol in recent history that I can remember because of the flash and dash that she's got to her game. She handles the ball well. Now she gets a little loose with the ball from time to time, turns it over. But I think you can live with that if she's creating turnovers, if she's making shots, if she's making great moves. But you can kind of see that from time to time our ladies they look a little tired. I'll give you that. And again, it's hard to play the way that Coach Caldwell wants you to play. There's a reason why she subs you out about every 2 minutes, because man, if you don't give everything you got, and you're not going to play. And then they empty the tank only to go back and sit down for a couple minutes, get a breather, come back in, empty the tank again, and that's hard. It's hard. But if you're going to play in Coach Caldwell's offense, that's what you got to do. And maybe today they get their legs back a little bit. Tomorrow can get even more rest. Maybe they don't go just as hard tomorrow in practice, and then Wednesday early morning, hopefully you can put it all together. But that's why it was so dangerous to lose that game yesterday, because now, man, you got to run the gauntlet to win the tournament. You got to run the gauntlet.
Yeah, Steve, how similar does this team remind you of Bruce Pearl's? Remember his very first team in Knoxville with Chris Lofton and when they were going off? I remember everybody remembers that game-winning shot against Winthrop, but I remember the last few weeks they just really hit a wall because Bruce Pearl just did not have the depth he needed yet. And to run that up-tempo offense, is this kind of similar right now, do you think, with Kim Caldwell's first team?
Yeah, I think so. Now, I will say this. I think that Coach Caldwell's team is deeper than that Bruce Pearl team. Because if I recall, Bruce Pearl's team, man, they went about 7-8 guys deep, relied heavily on Lofton and Juwan, and man, once they wore down come March, they were just out of gas. This team that Coach Caldwell employs, I think they are deeper, but are they deeper at every position the way that she wants them to be? Probably not. When you are playing the way that she wants you to play 30 games in, if you notice yesterday and against Kentucky, the shots that we've been making all year long, now all of a sudden they're short, right? The layup attempts are short. And you can just tell that their legs are just a little bit weary. And you certainly hope that they haven't peaked just yet, or they're starting to come down. Because once you peak, man, and start to come down the hill, it's hard to go back the other way. But yeah, they're a little bit short-handed at some key positions. And the good news is you got reinforcements coming next year. But next year is next year, and as long as you continue to get the most out of everybody you got, which is what you're going to have to do right now, you still got a chance.
You know what they need to do is just take a day off, no pressure, and do like in Top Gun, it was the volleyball scene, or Maverick, it was the football scene. Just chill out for a day. I know that sounds crazy, but did you ever have a coach do that just said, man, the pressure's gotten to be a lot. Let's just either have a really easy practice or just chill out? Did you ever have that happen? Absolutely. And coaches, a really good coach will read the room. Like, okay, man, we're going to watch film today. We're going to kick our legs up. We're going to get together. We're going to watch a couple of hours of film. And I know this sounds bad. Please don't shoot me, but mental reps are important, right? We once had a coach that famously said, no, he's getting mental reps today, and I'm not even going to say his name.
I know who you're referring to, Steve. but they have 5-star hearts too.
Yes, 5-star hearts, mental reps, all that stuff, right? You got to have that type of stuff. But the mental reps are important because at this point of the season, everybody's tired. Everybody's tired. It's not just you. You look around the conference, everybody's tired. Everybody's worn down. it's a matter of who can, again, re-energize and get themselves back into game shape quickly and bounce back quickly each and every night, because now it's just hey, you win today, you play tomorrow. You win tomorrow, you play the next day, and then you kind of go on from there. But yeah, Dave, that's a great point, man. Sometimes coaches just read the room and say, we just need a break. We need a break. And we may, quite frankly, we may need a break from each other. We may need just a break from each other. Guys, go to your rooms, hang out, do what you want to do, watch TV, whatever, and then we'll reconvene together and hopefully make a march to the championship.
You know, what's funny is that all sounds good, but there's a tournament pressing down. So it's not like it's February. But Steve, have a blessed day, man. We love you. We love your sweater. We love your wife's selection of your clothes. And hopefully can we plan on doing this like every Monday? Because you bring the knowledge.
Hey, man, I don't know how much knowledge I bring, but I'll be honored to be on with you guys every Monday. I love and appreciate you guys letting this old timer jump on with y'all. You know, I try to stay hip and cool, man, by using some of the language that you youngsters use. And then I look at my 12-year-old and she just goes, no, don't do it.
I'm trying to incorporate fierce and crunk into my lexicon, and I think that'll really take me to the next level.
Well, I'm trying not to use the word boomer because it applies to me.
Yes, Caleb uses that daily.
No, y'all are both Gen Xers. Y'all are both Gen Xers. Y'all are okay. Y'all are okay.
No, we're not.
But Dave aged himself when he said crunk. I mean, that's like that word died in like 05, 06. And I'm from the city that invented it, and we don't even.
It's a pretty gnarly term usage by me. All right, Steve, have a blessed day, man. We really appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank y'all. Go Vols.
Steve bringing it, man. He needs to be the play-by-play. He needs to be the color guy on the broadcast. I'm just going to go ahead and go out on a limb. Steve Hamer needs to be that because he is absolutely awesome. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. He's a barrister now, so he's getting like the wigs and stuff in a room. It's really cool. And trust me, when it comes to legal issues, he's your call, banksandjones.com. And trust me when it comes to the buying process at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Man, I just bought a Jeep and I absolutely love it. Unbelievable. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, Banks & Jones.